What's up, y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. As always, you can find us on Millions and as a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Tonight, we are redoing the recording that we had from Blade and Bull, getting a good audio copy this time because it's a series that we've been teasing, talking about, kicking around in the back of our heads for quite some time now. But we're going to go back for one episode a week and talk about the craziest season in college football history. That is 2007. So tonight we're talking about preseason polls, storylines coming into the year, and week one. We already did this and I think I remember where the hiccups were. So we'll hopefully know better this time. But
Sure.
um, you ready to get into it?
Yeah, man, let's go.
All right. So we're going to go through the 2006 bowl season recap first because you can't necessarily talk about 2007 this far removed without having a conversation about how different the entire sport was back then. So we'll start with a little primer for the 2006 bowl games. So Florida, boo, won the national championship in 2006 with Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. Michigan came off of a close loss to Ohio State the day after Bo Schembechler died, and a blowout loss to USC in the Rose Bowl. And when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, you said that Bo died doing a pregame show.
Yeah, he did. So like he would do for the ABC affiliate in Detroit, him and Don Shane, I think he's still alive. I'm not sure though, but he's definitely retired. Him and Don would do a pregame show and they would tape it, I think like the day before the actual games and kind of, go over Michigan and then touch on some Big Ten stuff and everything. And Bo would be hilarious and charming and all that and everything that you loved about Bo Schembechler if you grew up there. But he had a heart attack in the parking lot and died in the parking lot talking about football. Total football guy move. So shout out Bo.
That's the way I want to go.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it leads to something bigger, like I'm a martyr, but like not losing to Ohio State would be
I,
great. But
I would die in Sanford Stadium during a game. I'd be happy with that,
he's a hero.
especially if it's a game, just say 40 years down the road. I'm sitting there. Maybe I got, one of my teenage grandkids with me. And, let's just say Georgia hits a walk-off touchdown to beat Alabama. And I get so excited I have a heart attack and die. I went
Yeah.
out the way I wanted to. It is what it is.
You go out on top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like I would hope that my family would let the team know. Hopefully,
They need to put you in the mausoleum next to UGA 22 at that point or whatever it would be.
Oh, dude, depending on how my funeral goes, because there's one thing that I would like done that I'm pretty sure is not legal. But if I get cremated, some of my ashes have to go in the hedges. It's required.
Yeah.
It's required.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
That's a good point because I'm definitely being cremated. That's what I want. I know a lot of people would take their dead relatives' ashes and put them at the was it the Haunted Mansion at Disney World, and they
yeah,
just vacuum that shit up right away because they're just used to it.
yeah, but you can't do that in the hedges. And if you're
No,
real subtle about it, nobody knows.
mm-hmm.
I'm just feeding
Little
the
bag.
hedges.
Yeah, just I dropped something in there. Oops. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fertilizer. I will
Well,
gladly
they need it.
fertilize the hedges.
They need it at this point. They're brand new now. I'm sure they'll be 40 years from now. Same
I,
deal.
I was about to say I don't want to die right now, preferably.
No,
Um,
if I have my choice, I'm gonna live a little bit longer.
just a little bit. Ask me tomorrow, I may have a different answer, but today I want to live longer.
Let me get through one more football season at a minimum, please. If I died right now, fuck.
Yeah, don't we die before football season?
Yeah.
Um, so number 4, LSU beat the hell out of number 11 Notre Dame 41-14 in the Sugar Bowl in Les Miles' second season as the head coach. The Big East champions, number 5 Louisville, beat 15 Wake Forest under Bobby Petrino in the Orange Bowl.
His first stint.
First time. Yep,
Yeah.
that his cherry was popped. He hadn't been run through quite yet. He's getting there.
Yep.
But going back and looking at it, it is wild about how far the Big East fell so quickly.
Yeah.
Like perennial national title contenders up until what 2007, 2008, and then
Hmm.
they found that cliff we were talking about diving a few weeks ago.
There we go.
It,
Sorry.
yeah, no, we were both distracted watching the Georgia baseball game. Um, but no, in 1991 they added Miami, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia. And then when teams started leaving, they fell off to the point the conference stopped having football teams altogether after 2012. Um,
Yeah.
they still have basketball, but it's not even the same Big East basketball. When
Yeah. It's not like,
Syracuse is too
right.
good for your conference, stuff.
It's a problem. Yeah. You just have to have all
Yes.
these small Catholic colleges in like New York City that have to fill in the gaps, right?
Yeah, it's tough, man. Going back and watching these games of the Big East, like
Fun.
Power Six, maybe, I don't know, Big Six, who knows? But it
Yeah. I'm
was
not sure what
fun.
we called it at that point. Yeah.
It was fun.
Mm.
I'll have to talk to some old people and figure it out. Um,
Yeah.
but then number 10, Auburn, and Senator Tommy Tuberville snuck past number 22, Nebraska, on the back of first-year defensive coordinator Will Muschamp's defense in a 17-14 Cotton Bowl. And
Senator Tommy Tuberville.
the the sentence that I just came out of my mouth.
Hmm.
If you'd have asked me a few years ago if I would ever say those string of words together, never would have believed it. First off, a state as divided as Alabama voted a former Auburn head coach into the United States Senate.
There's more Auburn fans in Atlanta than there are in Alabama, as far as I know. That's what everyone says. That's wild, I think.
I and then first year defensive coordinator Will Muschamp. I forgot he coached at Auburn at that time.
He did it twice, right?
Yes, yeah, he
Yeah.
went back to Auburn for a little bit, but that first year defensive coordinator Will Muschamp.
Yeah,
I,
that's wild.
I
I
wrote
feel like
it.
he's been doing it, being a DC longer than that for whatever reason. I don't know.
He was on the staff at LSU
With
for
Saban, yeah.
Nick Saban, but he
Mm,
was a defensive backs coach.
mm. Yeah, we talked about it the first time we go around with this, but the clip of Saban and him like just tearing into, I don't even know who it was at that point. Like did both like just right in the face, like just like motherfucking whoever it was, like to his
Yeah,
face. I would have shit my pants. I'm just saying, Coach
absolutely.
Boom and Nick Saban going after you like that.
Yeah,
Oh, especially if you're like a freshman,
yeah.
transfer right away if it's today.
I mean, that guy grew up, and no matter who he is married to, it doesn't. You're not scary to that man.
No, no, no.
Like you could be a female serial killer that just got out of prison, and he's going to be like, I got yelled at every day by Will Muschamp and Nick Saban.
Yeah,
You do not even come close to scaring.
big facts.
Um, but in the Fiesta Bowl, we had the infamous Statue of Liberty play. Number 9 Boise to beat number 7 Oklahoma in a 43-42 game. And
Incredible game.
so when we first recorded this, I had started watching this game. A couple days later, I finished it, and I had the joy of showing Kelsey this game for the first time.
She never saw it.
She's never seen it
Oh
until
my God. And
a
did you
week and a
show her like
half
the
ago.
fucking proposing at the end of it too? Like, I mean,
Oh yeah,
God,
yeah,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
yes.
That is like you couldn't write it any better than that. I'm surprised they haven't come out with a movie with that ending yet.
And towards the middle of the fourth quarter, she said, "What'd you say the final score of this game was again?" And I was like, "Oh boy,
Yeah.
you, my sweet summer child, you have no idea."
Bless your heart. Yeah.
And it's not very often that she enjoys watching games back with me, especially if she knows how it ended. And I
Yeah.
just told her score. I didn't tell her who won, but getting to see somebody watch that for the first time is, like the reference I just made, showing somebody Game of Thrones for the first time. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I really like this Ned Stark guy. I hope he does well. LOL. You are in for a treat.
Right.
And then in an, at the time, non BCS Chick fil A Bowl, unranked Georgia beat number 14 Virginia Tech 31-24 to round out the 2006 Bowl recap. And that, if we have time this offseason, because, shocking for everyone, including us, we actually have a plan for
Yeah.
pretty much every week until the middle of August. Um, so,
It's wild. Who would have thought?
not me.
And not me. No.
So, if we have time, that is going to be towards the top of our to hell with everyone list. But it's nice that we have things to talk about that are different now and then. Um,
Mhm.
so now the foreplay's over, we're going to get into 2007.
Only going to take about 2 minutes, if that.
Well, foreplay's already over, dude.
You do
It took
foreplay?
almost it took almost 12 minutes for the foreplay. That's way too long. What are we doing?
Some would argue, yeah.
Um, so preseason poll. USC came into the season ranked number 1, LSU at 2, Big East, West Virginia at number 3, Texas at 4, Michigan at 5, and don't worry, we're getting to Michigan. Um,
Shut the fuck up. Respectfully.
Florida is coming in at number 6, Wisconsin at 7, Oklahoma at 8, Virginia Tech at 9, Big East, Virginia Tech, Big East, Louisville at 10, Ohio State at 11, Cal at 12, Georgia at 13, 14 was UCLA, 15 Tennessee, and then down towards the bottom, a couple of other important teams. 24 was Boise State, and Hawaii was 23rd.
Georgia being right in between Cal and UCLA is
In
a
the top
wild
15.
sentence.
In the
Yeah.
top 15. That,
Right, yeah.
I mean, would those two teams be ranked in the top 15 in basketball right
Not Cal. UCLA maybe. Not Cal.
now? Boy, we've come a long way.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so, a little bit of preseason notes for 2007. I don't remember much of anything specific from the 2007 season, so I'm intentionally not doing any research beyond the week we're talking about. So, like, we recorded this, found out the audio wasn't um, decipherable, is the word I'm going to use.
Yeah.
So, since we wrote this, I have not looked at anything past week 2 because we started on that outline.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We're doing 2 and 3 at the same time. But as far as week 4 goes, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't. But Texas had Colt McCoy, a healthy Colt McCoy.
Big
2007.
big primer, yeah.
2007 is looking to be a big year for West Virginia. They had prime Pat White and Steve Slayton. I believe.
And Rich Rodriguez, too.
Yes, and I believe Pat McAfee was on the team at the time. Did we look that up?
I don't think we did. I'm gonna check it out real quick.
Okay. Georgia was coming into the season with a sophomore Matt Stafford, Thomas Brown, Noshawn Marino, and a few other big names. And then I'll go through.
He was with Pitt. I'm sorry, he was with West Virginia in 2007. He missed a field goal against Pitt that year. Spoiler.
Unforgivable, actually.
Right. Yeah. Eat shit, Pitt.
So I'm gonna go through my thoughts about the preseason for 2007, and then I'll let you get into yours.
Okay.
So 2007, Nick Saban's first season in Tuscaloosa. Butch Jones' first season as a head coach in Central Michigan. He was replacing Brian Kelly, who was in his first year at Cincinnati.
Pipeline.
And Gene Chizik had just taken over at Iowa State for his first head coaching job. And then there's this guy just taking over at Stanford named Jim Harbaugh. It rings a bell, but I don't remember much about him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody said he drinks milk with a steak and is scared of chickens. I'm not real
Yeah,
sure. He sounds like
chicken.
a weird guy.
So I've heard he's come around on chickens. He's not anti-chicken because it's a nervous bird. He didn't want, he thought that if you ate chicken, you'd become nervous. You'd take on whatever properties or personality that chicken had because it's a nervous bird. He's come around on that, I guess, as of late, but
Okay. Okay.
took him a
Good to
while.
know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Long time. Long time. It's been a while since
a
2007.
long time. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about the preseason for 2007 before we get into it?
So at this time, I'm 17. I'm going into my senior year in high school, and I'm thinking the world of Michigan at this point. Like, and that's really all I really cared about at that point. Um, just like Big Ten schools have, again, not really paying attention to SEC so much. Besides for, again, we'll talk about Matt Stafford later in the year because he became a realistic option for the Lions because they've been pretty much ass my entire life, and even up to that point. Um, but Michigan had Chad Henne returning, notable, longtime backup in the NFL, made a shit ton of money there.
Dream job.
uh, he had him. You had Mike Hart, who was up there as one of, if not the leading rusher in Michigan history. Um, Mario Manningham was on that team, the guy that had one of the amazing catches from Eli Manning in one of those Patriots Super Bowls. Um, I think you had Frank Clark on that team, who was on the Chiefs for a long time. I think you had Brandon Graham on that team, who's still in the NFL now as defensive end for Philadelphia. So like this team had all kinds of talent. Greg Matthews, Steve Breaston, who was a really good kick returner for them and played in the NFL for a while too. Like this team was fucking stacked. They had they were a preseason Big Ten favorite. They were number 5 in the country going into the year, and with Ohio State losing Troy Smith, who won the Heisman the year before, everything was looking like it was going to be like Michigan's year until it
Troy
wasn't.
Smith, the most deserving Heisman winner of
Some
recent
would say,
history.
I mean, that some would just be the people in Columbus, but yeah,
And I think even some of those people know they're lying to themselves.
yeah.
So, getting into week one here, I do want to pause real quick to say that Georgia's pitcher just threw his 103rd pitch.
How the fuck is he still in this game?
Well, he just got a strikeout after a 7 pitch at bat. So,
Okay.
yeah, we'll have a couple of those little side notes because it is a big game tonight. But and you guys obviously by the time you're listening to this know how it plays out.
You know if we're going to super regional or not. Yeah.
Anyway, week one. Number 13, Georgia beat Oklahoma State in Athens 35-14. Matt Stafford went 18-24, 2 touchdowns. Noshawn Moreno, 20 carries for 70 yards and 2 catches for 51 yards. Georgia totaled 376 total yards of offense and allowed 266. They outran Oklahoma State 142-70 and one time of possession by 8 minutes.
That's like a little bit more than half a quarter, right?
Yes. Yep. I believe that is how it works. Not real big on math.
No.
Just not.
We didn't go to Tech.
Yep. Right. I went to a D3 school. So.
We didn't math at Georgia. And not yet at Georgia Southern either for me, but yeah.
You don't go to Georgia to play school. You go to Georgia to play ball.
Right.
But the first drive of Oklahoma State's day had the punter drop the snap and get targeting 100%.
Yeah.
Unnecessary roughness, minimum. Targeting, probably.
Yes.
But Georgia got the ball in the red zone, and Thomas Brown scored on Georgia's first offensive play. Stafford, in the next drive, had a scramble that turned into a 20-yard-ish run, breaking a couple of ankles in the process. which goes against everything we said just a few weeks ago about Stafford running like a 38-year-old Peyton Manning when he was in college. Um,
But we had said that was like pre Matt Stafford finding like frat row and becoming frat Stafford
that's true. That's true.
or fat Stafford, if you want to be mean.
I won't be.
Yeah.
Not after, I don't know if I've said this on the show before. I went to G Day the year he got drafted, and he was there on the sideline, legitimately leaning up against the hedge while I was there with a bunch of other kids asking for autographs. And he turns around, makes a face, and walks off. And I hated Matt Stafford for a decade.
That's your villain origin story.
It is. Sitting there, every single other player that got drafted that year signed so many autographs they probably couldn't move their hand for days.
Yeah.
And Stafford just looked at all the kids and walked off. And I was like, oh, this guy's a
Fuck them
dick.
kids. Fuck them kids.
Hey, that's Chicago, not Detroit.
Yeah, that's fair. You know what? With Matt Stafford, that man has given like countless like millions of dollars like to the city for like rec projects and like reclamation things. Like he legitimately he's not the kid he was when like right when he got drafted. Like he's turned into like a pretty good like model citizen for all intents and purposes, everything that we know.
Yeah, and I think it really changed once I became an adult and realized, oh, changing. That's what you do when you grow up. Like you, most of the time, become a better person than when you were 22 years old.
I don't know if I am to be honest, but yeah.
Like I said, most of the time.
Yeah.
But a lot of Georgia's success during this game came in the air from running back screens. Um, and Georgia's defense was just all targeting all day. It was
Yeah.
it was brutal the way they were flying around.
Greg Blue wasn't on this team, was he?
I don't
That was
believe
before
so.
that. Yeah.
Um, but late in the game, the pressure, like they were just putting so much pressure on the Oklahoma State offense that the entire offense just cracked. It was either a turnover, a sack, an interception. There was no room to breathe for Oklahoma State towards the end of this game. Um, and we're both currently distracted because it's the play at third for the third out in the inning.
Charlie
Um,
kind of punched him in the nuts with the ball. What is he thinking? Or with the glove?
looks out to me. Looks out right there.
Yeah. Yeah. We might
Anyways,
be for once. We might be in the same spot in the stream.
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
But do you have any other thoughts on this Georgia Oklahoma State game?
No, I mean it was fun to. I don't know if this is quite the beginning of it because I mean I know that under Rick they played against Arizona State and Oklahoma State in Stillwater, played against Colorado and Boise and all these other like non-conference games. But it's cool to see them play a team they don't traditionally play, and you wouldn't think of like, hey, we need to get Oklahoma State on the on the schedule. So like it was cool to see that, and then it just be as dominating as of a game as it was, kind of a precursor to what we would see later this year and then the following year.
Yeah, no, it really is. So one thing that I realized in this game is former Super Bowl champion left tackle Russell Okung gave up multiple sacks in this game to an undersized Georgia defensive line, according to the guys on ESPN that day.
Mhm.
He was sophomore left tackle and just could not handle 90% of what Georgia was throwing at him.
I mean, they were flying hot.
And Mikey Henderson, I remember the name jogs. It's like opening the door to a garage, like cobwebs and moving, but I don't remember a whole lot. Um, but not remembering
Yeah, is
anything
out.
about this season, calling him out. Let's go.
Out.
Not remembering pretty much anything about 2007. After that big punt return in the fourth quarter, I'm going to be watching for Mikey Henderson in all these games we go back and look at.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I think I'm going to let you let you do this because I promise this offseason has not just been one big long troll of you for this game. It just has happened that way.
Yeah, so I think you guys know what I'm about to say. Uh, but fuck App State forever. Not even just as a Georgia Southern student at this point, or about to be. Um, but fuck them. They don't deserve anything. So again, the reason why I say this, and we've talked about it a ton this offseason, kind of throwing it back to this, but App State beat, or at the time, one AA App State beat number 5 Michigan in the Big House 34-32. Um, Michigan, like I talked about before, Michigan was a preseason pick to win the Big Ten. Appalachian State won back-to-back one AA national championships and were the favorites to repeat.
And they
Um,
did three-peat. We looked
they
it up
did,
during the initial recording of this.
yeah. So they ended up doing that. Um, and for shits and gigs, this is the first game in the history of the Big Ten Network. Very first game, nooner, that first Saturday. What could go wrong? It's App State, get the kinks out. No, didn't happen.
I think some Michigan fans got some new kinks that day.
Just like to be shit on. Um, but so and I talked about this in the initial recording as well. But I was supposed to go to this game. So at the time, my brother, one of my other aunts, and then one of my cousins, like kind of would buy games off my aunt who had season tickets. She had them forever. I think my brother, I don't know if he's like officially taken it over, but he gets the season tickets from my aunt and pays for it and stuff like that. I don't know if he does the donation. I don't know how it goes, but I don't know if it's in his name or not. But regardless, it doesn't matter. At the time, we would go to a couple games each year, like between the cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff like that. I was supposed to go to this game. I ended up trading it with my cousin Eric because I had to work, of all things, when I was 17. And I had to go to fucking Kroger and work. And I'm like, oh, I can't
Oh,
miss a shift at Kroger as a grocery bagger making $6.50 a fucking hour. Can't miss that. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I went to work because I got back just in time to see the ending of this game. Um,
should work overtime.
I should have and just never looked back at it ever. But there was no betting line on this game because Vegas really didn't do that for one A at the time, 1A versus one AA, games, which again makes sense because that really at that point you hadn't had an upset, so there's no reason to. It's always been a blowout until this Saturday. Um, it began as a strong first half for App State, who held a 28-17 lead at the end of the half. Michigan regained lead 32-31 in the fourth quarter, but Appalachian State took the lead for the second time on a short field goal attempt with 26 seconds left. The Mountaineers blocked the potential game-winning field goal from Michigan at the end of regulation to secure a 34-32 win. They almost brought the block kick back. I think they got stopped at like the 10.
And
So
it's
shout out whoever, was pissed off enough to chase that kid down, because if it looks a lot worse to lose 40-32 than it does 34-32. And one other thing
it's
with this, oh
it's just kind of wild that 2007 Michigan was able to have a 26-second drive, but 2023 Michigan, 26 seconds is like a play.
yeah, exactly. They're not, yeah, they would try to kill that clock as much as they could. Michigan became the first team ever to go from top five. I guess you can say preseason top five because that's the word, but top five to unranked within a single week.
I
Now
believe
they were
this.
like, if you look at the receiving votes, they were like 26th, but still they were from top five to unranked.
I believe they still
Unreal.
hold that record.
Yeah, I can't think of a team that fucked up that royally week one or any week that
Yeah,
was in the top five.
yeah. So getting to a few other games going on right here. So Texas squeaked by Arkansas State. Second Butch Jones reference of the night. To 21-13, West Virginia beat Western Michigan 20 or 62-24. West
Too many
Virginia outgained
Western
Western.
teams, yes.
Yeah, I It's too much. It's too much for somebody that lives on the East Coast. I don't say west this much. Um,
Right.
West Virginia outgained Western Michigan 542 to 277. Pat White was 10 for 18 for 192 yards, 2 touchdowns, and carried the ball 9 times for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. Steve Slayton, 16 carries for 109 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 catches for 61 and another touchdown.
And if you guys aren't like familiar with like this again, prime West Virginia with Rich Rodriguez, who was a alum of West Virginia, and Steve Slayton, Pat White, like I mean, go back and watch these games. Like this shit was fun to watch. Like like this is still like kind of sort of 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's kind of morphing into more of a spread thing with like Tebow and all that at this point. So it's kind of that weird quasi time, even before like Chip Kelly at Oregon doing the very, very quick, no huddle offense and running plays like in 10 seconds or less or whatever. Um, it was different. Like it was like game changing. So again, do yourself a favor and go back and watch West Virginia at this point because they were incredible to watch at this point.
Yeah, I do plan on doing that at least once or twice during this series we've got going on. Speaking of Georgia Tech, they beat Notre Dame in South Bend 33-3. Cal beat Tennessee 45-31 in Berkeley.
Hell
Hawaii
yeah.
beat Northern Colorado 63-6. And Clemson beat Florida State 24-18 in Clemson. And then Florida did what they do, schedule a lot of nobodies, and beat the hell out of them. Tebow had 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, 38 yards rushing, and another touchdown.
Hmm.
Week one huge upset, but otherwise pretty low key. Week two is a different story, and then week three, another different story. It's that's kind of why we're doing it week by week, is because each week is so wildly different when you're talking about the 2007 season.
Yeah.
But that is going to do it for this episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. First installment of our Jackpot ? What happened in
Yep.
2007 series? We're excited for this. Hope you guys enjoy it. But as always, follow us on social media at nothing.finer.pod on Instagram, at finerpod on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search us there. TikTok is Nothing Finer Podcast. I forgot to mention that in the last episode. But as always, guys, remember there is nothing finer in the land.
They're drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.